Hello, this is Roland. Welcome. Today I want to talk about books. People wonder what books I recommend. Well, of course I recommend my books. But I have to say something else first, and that is that I can learn from just about anything. Just about anything. I can even learn from a bad person, or a bad book, or something that's completely dishonest. When I see the dishonesty, I see what they're avoiding, or what they're trying to deny, and then it gives me a clue as to who they are and what is true. See? So I can learn from anything. Of course, there are some better sources than others. But in order to learn, you have to refine the path of discovery. A long time ago, I wrote a book called Finding the Discovery Path. It's not available anymore. It was a good book. It was one of the first books I ever wrote 26 years ago. But you have to find the discovery path. And the way to do that is to find the objective consciousness, the enlightened consciousness. The enlightened consciousness. And I want to again recommend videos I've made recently on the Beatitudes, where Christ talked about a heavenly attitude, which is the way it's translated from the Aramaic by the Yonan Codex Foundation, who did an excellent translation of the Khabouris manuscript, which was found an ancient text written in Aramaic. Okay? So that way you get a sense of the words and what the words meant when Jesus spoke them in the Syriac tongue in which he spoke. So you have to be objective. I'll give you, this is an analogy, but it's actually rather apt. Okay, it's apropos. Let's suppose you have you have two math students. One math student really and truly wants to learn math. And so when he makes a mistake, he tries to figure out what his mistake was. And finally, he can't figure it out. The professor comes along, teacher, and points out the error. Then he's glad to see it. Of course, he's a little embarrassed by it, perhaps. And he wished he hadn't made the mistake, but he's glad. He's actually glad to see the mistake because now he can solve the problem and understand it, you see? But suppose there's a math student who doesn't want to admit he's wrong. He resents being wrong. And he doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake. He doesn't even want to see it. He just wants to get a good grade anyway. See, are there people like that? Yes, there are. Okay, and have we all been like that sometimes, more or less, in our lives? Yes, we have. Haven't you ever just refused to admit you were wrong? Deep down, you sort of knew you were wrong, but you didn't want to admit it. You didn't want to say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. See? Well, that stubbornness can permeate your whole perspective on reality. That stubbornness, that refusing to admit the truth. Okay. Now, some people are incorrigible. They will never admit they're wrong. Okay, and they hate the truth. Okay. But then a lot of people, they're just in error, and they have the natural human tendency to not want to admit they're wrong. But eventually, they'll come around to the truth. Now, to be able to see the truth, what is? Okay. You have to have an objective consciousness. You have to have an awareness. See, they once asked, do you remember there was, who was the writer? Hemingway, Ernest Hemingway, remember? A famous writer. I think he won did he win the Nobel Prize or the Pulitzer Prize? Famous writer. Okay. And once they asked him how to be a good writer, what's the number one quality that you need to be a good writer? And he said, the number one quality that you need is to have a really good, solid, union-made stainless steel BS detector. Okay. And he didn't say BS, he said something else. Your BS detector. Well, that is actually what you need. Now, some of you have that. Some of you can spot deceit or lies or something not quite right about something. To some extent, you can, but because you're still subjective, egotistical, looking at everything from taking things personally, not objective, not seeing it from a universal perspective, you still can be deceived. Okay? And so let's just keep it very simple. We're talking about books that I recommend, and I will mention some. But I said first you have to have the objective attitudes, the objective frame of mind, the objective stance. Christ talked about, that's exactly what Christ meant when he said a heavenly attitude. In the King James, it's translated blessed. Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, blessed are the peacemakers. That's a nice term, blessed, and it is a blessed. But Christ loaded a lot more into what he said. Blessed is like nice, or it's nice, but a heavenly attitude or a heavenly state. Okay, he also said a heavenly attitude is there. It's a heavenly state. Well, that's what you need. So how are you going to get that? See, then when you read, it'll be a discovery. Because you'll have, not only will you not be subjective anymore, but you will also have the inner light of intuition. See, Einstein had this heavenly attitude, this heavenly state when he made his discoveries. Did he figure out or invent, his discoveries about relativity? No, he didn't. He discovered them. So, when you are objective, when you have this heavenly state, then you pick up a book and start reading, and all of a sudden you'll see something. The words will kind of stand out, and you'll see deeply what they mean. You'll realize it's like the aha moment, the eureka moment. The aha moment. That's what you need. The heavenly state. Now, the opposite of the heavenly state, or the heavenly attitude, is subjective attitude. That's where you're prideful, egotistical, you don't admit you're wrong, and you tend to deny the truth. See? Every time you make an excuse, you're denying the truth. Every time you rationalize or justify something, every time you refuse to admit you're wrong, you're denying the truth. See? And also, when you resent other people or hate them or judge them, it's also denying the truth. See, if you judge someone, see, with a little pinch of resentment, see, there's a difference between discernment, between judgment and discernment. When you're objective, when you stand back and you're detached and take an objective, a universal view, this heavenly state that Christ talked about, this heavenly attitude, then you can discern. Okay? You discern truth or discern error. Sometimes you don't know what the truth is, but you can see error. You can see the deceit. You can see something wrong about something. Maybe you can't explain why, but you just sense something wrong about it. Okay? So that's what you need. So, the other thing about the subjective state, the opposite of the heavenly state, is that it's also hypnotic. See, when you take things personally, when you have a personal, prideful view of things, then it also lends itself to hypnosis. See, because when you look at something, you look at it. It's so hard for me to describe. I could look like I'm looking at a glass right now. Okay. If I just look at that glass, I don't even say glass, don't even form a word in my mind. I just look at it. So I'm looking at the glass, and I don't even form the word glass in my mind. I just look at it. Okay? But as soon as I say glass, okay, and then I make a judgment. Oh, that's a good glass. That's a bad glass. That's a pretty glass. That's an ugly glass. See? Or I could even start to have an attachment to it. Remember I said rapport, hypnotic rapport? Begin to have an attachment to that glass. That's my glass. Don't use my glass. Who put a scratch on my glass? See, you could become resentful. Or if I see that the glass is making a round mark on the wooden table, I could resent it. See? So you see how it changed, how that subjective perspective. So before long, glass becomes too important to me. I begin to notice glasses everywhere. Then I become fixated to glasses. Start collecting glasses. And see, that's what it could lead to. And it can lead to complete insanity. Okay? This subjective consciousness. You need objective consciousness so you're not lost in things. So you're detached. So you can discern. So you can see what's true and what's not true. Okay? And so you can discover. Now, I said Einstein had it. You had it too. When you were a little child, you had it. When you were a little child, before you were upset and emotionalized, you had it, okay? You had this objective consciousness. And can you see now that if you have the objective consciousness, you won't get caught up in the words? Remember how I was describing it, getting caught up with the glass that I was looking at? If you are objective, then you can scan lightly. You can get a book and scan lightly without getting lost in it, without concentrating on it, without, focusing on it. Concentrate too hard, you become hypnotized. But when you stand back and defocus, deconcentrate, then you can be objective. Now there's an additional benefit to this objective consciousness. Remember I said discovery? Because you're close to your intuition. When you're lost in thinking, lost in concentrating, lost in focusing, when you're subjective. See, remember, egotistical, when you don't want to admit you're wrong. And when you look at things subjectively, egotistically, why is she looking at me that way? Why doesn't she bring me what I want? Why does she always ask of this? Why don't they do this? See how it becomes personal? Or I want that for myself. Or I'm going to be nice to her so that she gives me this. Or I'm going to be nice to him so he gives me that. And start scheming and planning because there's something personal. It's not free. And when you talk, you always want something, from other people instead of just free. See? You get hurt feelings. Why did she say that to me? And why didn't he say good morning to me? And see, so it's very subjective. And then in this subjective consciousness, then you develop an involvement with fantasy. When you have the objective consciousness that Christ spoke about, where you can discern, where you can discover, where you're free to realize. When you're not, don't get lost in things, pulled into things, and you have a little detachment. And then you are involved with, if anything, intuition, what you know in your heart. And intuition is from God, so you're closer to God. But when you are involved subjectively, egotistically with things, you get involved in imagination. Thinking about what happened. Reliving the past, planning and scheming for the future, worrying about the future. Lost in imagination, fantasy. The sunshine is kind of coming and going, so I'm going to break it into this video before the sunshine goes away again. So first of all, you have to develop the habit of standing back from things, taking a mental step back. Whenever you catch yourself getting lost in music or lost in a conversation or lost in a television program or lost in anything, take a step back, detach, okay? Step back. And then you get the meditation that I have. Especially the 5-minute free meditation is excellent. Okay? It's excellent. It teaches you how to find this detached state of mind. okay, where you're closer to God, closer to your intuition, closer to what Einstein had, closer to what you had when you were a little child, okay, and not lost in thoughts, okay. It doesn't mean that you're going to stop thinking or that you're going to try to blank thought or anything, but you'll have a different relationship with thought. You'll observe the thought instead of being lost in the thought. Develop a mindset of friendly neutrality. Don't take things personally. Don't take praise. Don't get puffed up by praise, and don't get bummed out by criticism. Just let criticism, just let it roll off your back like water off a duck's back, okay? And praise, don't get puffed up by praise, and don't resent it either when you see people are manipulating you. Just have a neutral attitude, an attitude of, let me help you, instead of getting angry with people. Learn to just see things without naming them, and always storing away all these word knowledges of things. Just observe things lightly, okay? Just go about your day observing lightly as if you were a tourist on vacation, okay? And then practice the meditation 3 times a day, okay? And importantly, learn to let go of resentment. That is hypnotic. That pulls you into things, see? Learn to see people with fresh eyes. Don't say, oh, I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to say that. Just see people anew every day with fresh eyes, okay? As if you were seeing them for the first time. And you can do that if you start to let go of resentment of people, okay? But above all, try the meditation, because it'll help you to find this objective state. So, I think I've said all I can say. The clouds keep rolling by, and I try to say a few words between clouds rolling by when the sun is shining. And that is nice, actually. I love the sunshine. Thanks for watching this video. Try the free meditation. And we'll see you when I make my next video, Lord willing.